Welcome along to Man in the Mirror. It's Hayden here, and I'm delighted to say I'm joined by Adam Hurly, who is a journalist who writes about grooming and travel for titles such as GQ, Forbes, and the Robb Report. And good morning, Adam. How are you?
Hey, Hayden. I'm so well, thank you. I'm enjoying sunny Lisbon. I just got back from the US visiting family and in New York City, and I'm very happy to be home. So I'm
Well,
great.
good. And God, we met about a month ago, I think, didn't we? Which was so lovely because obviously doing these things virtually is fine, but yeah, we've been in touch via DM and all that stuff, but it was so nice to actually get to see you in real life and sit and have a coffee when you were in London
Yeah,
and just to find out a bit more about you.
to me, it felt like meeting an old friend, to be honest. I think
I
you've talked
know.
to so many of my acquaintances and friends over time that I was getting a little jealous. And so I'm very honored to be on the show, but more than anything, I was just finally like excited to meet you. And I already knew what you look like, but you know, your dulcet tones, like there's so much even they're richer in person. So I
Stop,
appreciated
stop.
that.
But it was really nice, and I guess those things can go either way. But I've felt the same, and yeah, I've we had some really nice connections on on message and stuff anyway, but it was, yeah, we have lots of friends in common, and I've admired your work and your writing for a long time, and I think in
Thanks.
terms of the space that we're talking about here, and grooming and fragrance and lifestyle and those things, like, you're absolutely one of the preeminent journalists out there. I mean, why, first of all, I mean, hello, what took you to why are you in Portugal?
Well, I guess there's no short story when you talk to me, and I could talk a lot. So let me give you the brief version. It starts with getting laid off in 2016. I was working at Birchbox. I was the men's editor for Birchbox
Yes.
Man there. I thought I was very good at my job. I mean, I was very good at my job. Just
So
that.
Birchbox, is that one of those services where they sort of put together a curated edit of samples and
Yeah,
things like that? Yeah.
yeah. They were people now say, oh, it's like the Birchbox of dog food. It's the Birchbox of this. They were that, and we had these two genius founders. The business was really thriving for a long time, and I think they created this great model that then was adopted by a bunch of other businesses. And so
Mm.
Birchbox is really not the same. It existed in the UK. They bought up a company in France. They had a company in Spain. They were doing really well for a while, and I was their men's editor, and I would do all of our videos. I was the head of SEO for the company. So that's going to get us into some other parts of this conversation. But I did get
Yeah.
laid off in early 2016, and I was just shy of what we call the tribatical, which was a sabbatical after you work there for 3 years. And so,
Right.
almost in a defiant step, I said, "Well, screw y'all! Like, I'm not doing a little 1 month break. I'm gonna like go far and wide." So I
Yeah.
actually moved. I traveled for a year while keeping my freelance work that I had just started. And then I decided to move to Germany. I was in Berlin for 6 years. And
Yes.
yeah,
And
and
that's a
so
great
then
city, isn't it?
I had a blast until I stopped having a blast.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, it can be a kind of tiring place, I guess, kind of
yeah,
party city.
I moved there to do the fun. I wanted to
Mm.
be at Berghain every weekend. I had my moment, but really, like at the pandemic, I just said I do not look like GQ's grooming writer, and I need to change that. I need to dress the part a little bit more. So
Yeah.
I started cleaning up my act a little bit. Anyway, that takes us to my partner is Brazilian. He moved to Berlin for us to be together, and
Right.
he took a job there, and we had a great time nesting. After I quieted down a little bit too.
Did you meet in Berlin?
We met in São Paulo, where he's from. I also did travel writing for a long time. I do it piecemeal now, but I really
Yeah.
did it at the start of those years in Berlin, and I spent a few months in Brazil right before the pandemic, just escaping the winter. We met in that first week, and we were able to cultivate that long distance during the
Yeah.
pandemic. And so he got a job really easily. He worked for this big bank, Itaú, and took his analytics job into the fintech world of Berlin. All this to say, we kind of were counting down to leaving once he got started there. We knew that was just the step for us being together. So we
Yeah.
started looking at Spain and Portugal. And a lot of things just unfolded for us to move to Portugal. And that was, a visa that worked. You can also import cosmetics into Portugal, but you can't do that in
No, yeah.
Spain. And so for me,
Important point.
I could do my job a lot easier in
Yeah.
Portugal. and Portuguese. I mean, he speaks it. I'm learning it.
Right.
So it
How are you
just
getting on? How are you getting on with learning the language?
eu falo pouco português.
Nice.
I don't know if I can, if I should keep going.
That sounds good. That sounds good.
No. It's coming along. I'm already like B1, B2 Spanish, and so I'm spending a lot of time just like, you know, trying to do like a 1 = 1, and that's not always the case.
Yeah,
Especially,
but it must help
it
with
helps a
Portuguese.
lot giving
Yeah.
you that foundation. My Portuguese is already better than my German, and after 6 years there, and it's, you know, the other thing is I'm learning Brazilian Portuguese while living in Portugal, and so there's some confusion, but it's kind of just like I just
Yeah,
call it
yeah.
it's like my little remix. You're gonna get whatever version you get, and it's me making the
Yeah, I guess you
effort.
probably some of the colloquialisms and the stuff that you know from your partner probably don't quite fly so
No,
easily
even he
in
has a hard
Portugal.
time here. Yeah, he often will
Really,
just walk into a store and start speaking English with the Portuguese people, and they
really.
just speak English with each other and understand each other better. So if he can do it, I feel a little less guilty. But
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
I'm very motivated to learn this language. I enjoy. I get that serotonin kick when I learn a new word, and every time I learn a new German word, it actually was like the opposite. I'd be like, no, I'm one step closer to understanding all of
Yeah.
this. So
Not
anyway, no
not
hard
quite
feelings
as
towards it.
not quite as easy. I mean, no offense to any German listeners, it's not quite as easy on the ear and quite as romantic as it is Portuguese.
No, and I do think I always meant to live in Germany only briefly, and it ended up being 6 years. And
Yeah.
and I moved here, and I intend to be here, or at least be in Brazil, and so it feels like an investment here.
So it sounds like I know it's not been that long, but it sounds like you're settling in and enjoying life in
Yeah,
Portugal.
I go for my walk every day. I just came back from one now, and I think you can see it in me. You can feel it in me, and like I'm just in a really happy, positive place here. We have a great neighborhood, a great apartment, great landlord. Like life is good, and
That's so
I
good to
haven't
hear.
always been able to say that, and I'm
Yeah,
like reveling in it now because I know that it can always change, but I'm enjoying that fact.
but it's important, isn't it? I guess to put those foundation stones in place because, as we'll come on to, there's lots of exciting things and sort of career developments happening for you, and you want those sort of key anchors to be there, don't you? And to be, as you it sounds like you had a fun time in Germany, but you want to be settled, and it sounds like good things are going on in all aspects of your career, which is great.
100%. And
Yeah.
I think I have needed this energy and this boost to look forward a little more. I really think I was hiding in place in Berlin in some ways.
Mm,
I was always one of the I was a grooming writer the entire time I lived there. My career definitely took off even more while I was there, but I didn't take meetings. I really was just focused on hitting my deadlines and existing exactly where I was. I wasn't really like looking out and feeling curious about things. And
yeah.
that might have been
Pushing
because
forward.
I was a travel writer too, and I would expend all that energy while I was doing the traveling for
Mm,
that part of my job. And when I would get home and do the grooming part, I was just like really antisocial. And so I feel like in moving to Portugal, there it feels like the sun is shining, like the lid is off, and I'm just
mm.
like, let's take meetings. If you're a publicist listening, that does not mean please request a meeting. It might be more that I'm requesting more meetings with people that I need to talk to. So
Everyone will be seeing more of Adam Hurley
yeah,
coming soon.
exactly. Yes.
Well, take me back to the beginning, Adam. What led you into writing, and I guess quite a specific lane, isn't it? Really, grooming. How
Yeah.
did you get there? Did it start with the writing piece and move into the specifics, or
It
was it
started
the
it
grooming
started
that
with
interested you?
well, it started with graduating in 2008 at the height of a recession, and
Yay! Good
it
one.
started with studying journalism and screenwriting in school, and I was sort of shelved the journalism part, and I really was pursuing the film part, and I took a lot of different temp jobs in film. I was working on side projects for a long time, but it was really hard to find steady work, and it wasn't that
Mm,
I was only looking in film. I was really just knocking on a lot of doors, and this is also when I was trying to learn a lot about myself. I came out around this time right after college, moved to San Francisco, moved to New York, and I was just like, it was like 1 month here, 4 months here, 1 year here. And before I knew it, I had spent about a year and a half as working on just SEO for a hotel marketing company. And I had had all this experience with video production, whether it was just like a summer camp photography
oh,
teacher,
really?
yeah, or like doing film shoot interviews for
Yeah.
the Telluride Film Festival, screenwriting at like just like osmosis of being around the screenwriters of Pixar, like all these like odd jobs that I had along the way. I had this weird set of skills, which is what attracted Birchbox to me when I
Right.
applied for the position. They said you don't need to know anything about grooming to do this job, but you have all the other skills that we
Right.
need in an editor, and you can learn the grooming, and especially if you can pop on camera and you can do that later. And I felt okay about that.
Was that in New York, Adam?
That was in New York. Yeah,
Yeah.
Birchbox was in the Flatiron district of New York, right above Madison Square Park there. And so this was 2013 when I got that job. So for that 5 years, I really had piecemealed a living together. And so I started that job, and I I never thought it like the grooming aspect would be something I would stick with. It started feeling like a job for a while. Even when I went freelance, I thought I'm going to just transition into travel writing full time. But especially with the pandemic, when that hit, and I realized that grooming was my bread and butter, a lot of
Yeah.
my travel writing friends lost all their work. They
Yeah, of
came to a
course.
standstill. My work came to a standstill in that lane. I never made that much money through travel writing. I got these incredible 5-star experiences all around the
Mhm.
world, like honeymoon caliber experiences, and I'm so fortunate for that. But it always paid just kind of penny, by comparison. And then I realized grooming is so valuable. It is so helpful. There are so many more people taking an interest in it, and I had my absolute best year ever in the pandemic, and I've had my best year ever, like ever since then, each subsequent year. And I'm realizing like, okay, I need to sort of sit into this position. I need to sink into this role and
Yeah. Lean
and
into it a bit more.
embrace everything I've learned
Mm.
through it, and everything that I've been able to give back to readers and to my clients and to these brands that I love and these brand owners that I love. And so I really started feeling empowered by it after the pandemic. And that's also when I started like sort of, you know, cleaning up my own act a little bit and like taking better care of myself, prioritizing like water and sleep and those sorts of things.
Those
So
important things.
yeah.
And I guess the whole sector's in the time that you've been doing it, things have changed so much, haven't they? From those kind of big beast media companies and the Esquires and the GQs and all those important though they are, the landscape's changed a lot, hasn't it? And that must have impacted how you've gone about it and where you put your energies as well.
Yeah, this is a big reason that I'm starting my own thing in the next couple months here. I will be keeping on with my core clients, but I think we can all feel the internet changing.
Yeah.
Like in its For me, I see that a lot with SEO and with how we approach writing all these articles. I've noticed a lot more ecom articles in my pipeline lately, and that's not for better or for worse.
Yeah. Yeah, me too.
And yeah, and just the the speed at which we have to update these search optimized articles, just because other people are updating theirs really quickly as well, and it's so important to be in that number one spot and to be the first thing that people click
Mm.
on. And these companies are so big, these editorial clients of mine, that they have a hard time, I think, pivoting quickly to the next thing. Without a lot of collateral damage to people's jobs and to layoffs and all these things. And I think there's a part of me that's a little triggered by the layoff that I addressed earlier. And I have had such a good experience with my life post layoff in the decisions I've made and the places I've gotten to live and the way that my career has taken off, that I think I'm almost like preventing myself from getting laid off by future proofing myself with
Yeah.
this new company that I want to
Yeah.
start. And without like shouting it in mystery or anything, it's probably going to look a lot like influencerdom, to be totally honest. But in the way that that an editor who's trained as a journalist will approach that, and the ways that I'm talking about things and the ways that I'm presenting things to readers, I think and viewers will be a lot more research based and fact based, and also like based in the fact that I'm the one who has thousands of products coming in his door every year and testing as many as possible. And I have the product closet, and so I'm taking. I think a lot of journalists, in the same way that many of them have been creating their own Substacks and newsletters and
Yeah.
trying to bring. Let me say it this way: like, there's a huge pie, and the big companies take big pieces of those, and as writers, we take crumbs, and we create a lot of the content that brings in a lot of that huge revenue. And that's not just writers, it's the people who are on the production team, it's the editors, it's the ad sellers, it's everyone. And all of us feel like we're in this together. These are the people doing the union organizing. These are the people who are my champions, even though like I'm starting my own thing that could, in theory, compete with some of my own clients. But in looking at this, like I know how much money a lot of these clients make, and they need that money to pay all these salaries. I don't need that much money, and I think I can start my own thing and take more money for myself than they're able to pay me without like compromising the system that much, if that makes sense. And that's what a lot of journalists are doing, I think.
Yeah, it does make sense, and I think we've all seen that kind of, as you alluded to there, that kind of content that comes through quite a lot, and it's quite sort of these listicle things, and it's the 10 best this, and obviously they can be of varying quality, but it can go all the way from just what seems essentially like cut and paste from press releases, or even worse, the sort of biggest brands getting the priority, or even those things that look like they're sort of a balanced edit, but actually it's one brand and they're kind of masking it by putting a few other things in. But I think the difference with what you do is that you're a writer, a journalist, so you can you've got practical experience of these products, and you can curate and add that journalistic element, which doesn't always happen. And I think it's really necessary. I think especially with grooming, so often it feels like no one's actually using the products, and it's no shade on anyone, but if often it's just written by a female writer who happens to be in the office or just asked to do this stuff, clearly she's not going to be using some of the shaving products.
Yeah, and I don't mean to fault like anyone who just has to churn an assignment out for the day. It's probably not their decision to do that. That's coming from the top down. In the same way that I've had to write articles before about like a black hairstyle, just to, and then I get to take the heat on it because the editor told me to do that. You do what you got to do. You do what you got to do. You interview the black barber in that article. That's the lesson that everyone needs to know. But the important like thing here is what you've said is you need to know that the person talking to you is the one that has tried this or is speaking from firsthand experience, or that they've connected to the resource that is the authority on that. And I do think that's why AI can be good, and why it's going to value the human experience and the human perspective on these things. As new products are coming out, it's going to be dependent on humans and testers to talk about their experience with these things. So I'm not necessarily anti-AI with any of this. In fact, I probably will benefit more than most journalists with AI, because my name is on a million different articles in grooming, and the system recognizes me as the expert in that. And so that's why I think I get all these bylines, especially from GQ right now, my core client, talking about my firsthand experience with these products and what I choose as the best. And so I understand this ecosystem and how it all fits together, but there is a lot to be desired when right now, with the way things are, we have to shelve a lot of really quality brands, like great brand stories, people who could probably build their entire business on just one headline if we gave them that. And I've heard of like, I put one product in an article, and then flash forward 3 years, and maybe I put like a beard oil at the top of an article. 3 years later, that founder might email me and say, guess what? We just bought a house. We're putting our kids in a great school system. And it all started with you putting that thing. And I say, no, it started with you making great product and making sure it got in my hand. But
that's amazing though, isn't it?
But
it's the beginning of something.
Yeah, and I think that's something that we get to do in editorials. We get to shine a light on these incredible stories. And these are the things that I think are falling a little bit wayside. I mean, I can put that product in a roundup, but I would love to talk about those founders and their story and endear people to their brand, because I think that's what they're looking for. And that's the
stuff I love too, actually, more the stories around the...
That's what you're doing with this
people.
Podcast. Yeah.
Yeah. But so how much, Adam, are you able to say about what you're going to be doing, about your new thing? You sort of teased at it there. Is it
well, I mean...
top secret, or you reveal a bit more?
Well, I could tell you that it's been in the works for a year, because there's we've had 2 full-time jobs. I've been working double time at my job, hitting these deadlines just to get us to this point where I can cut back, where we can cut
Yeah.
his salary. And so he's really technical and back end. So he's building the website. The
This
website.
is your partner, sorry.
This is my partner. His name is Andre. The thing is called Blueprint. It's 2 words: blue space print. Well, Blueprint by Adam Hurly. And I don't want to oversell the site at first because the site will be very static and in the background. We need a place where we can get a lot of organic traffic, where we can convert some affiliate stuff, but primarily where we can get people on the newsletter. And so the static stuff is going to be live relatively soon, but I ain't going to be talking about it too much because it needs to exist. But that's the thing that's it's taken so long. When we have that 1 hour of energy at 11 p.m. on a Wednesday while planning an international move, that's why it's just like crept along. But now that he's working full time for us, just that progress we feel every day, and I'm working half time for us. It's about 4 or 5 hours a day. And
so when do you expect for people to be able to see something and sign up? And
well, I mean, in theory, you could sign up for the newsletter now. The blue-print.co exists. Soon, I need to reroute grooming.tips. We have that. That'll be the website that we is easier to refer people to. My Instagram has the link to sign up.
I'll put this in the show.
The dynamics will be in probably, I want to say late September, early October. And when I say the dynamics, I mean the YouTube channel, the newsletter, all these, the socials, all these moving parts that we can focus on once the static, the framework of the
frameworks there,
exists. Yeah, because that stuff we can do 2 shoot days, film 10 videos or something. I've got all the products effectively called in at this point. The first 6 months of this year was basically just me on the phone with customs for 2 hours every day.
Oh my goodness.
Showing uglier sides of myself and learning new words in Portuguese as myself. Where the hell is my box that you said is in town? We're I think everything is set up and so
it's going to be multifaceted, video, articles.
Yeah, it's very
newsletter.
Omni-channel, I think is the word that I'm realizing I have to use, which again, it will look a little bit like influencer done, but it has to have this editorial spin on it because I still want to fit into, I will still keep my core clients. That's really important to me. And I think it's important to a lot of the brands too, that I stay connected into the media world and into this other thing. And I think we're going to see a lot of journalists jumping into YouTube a lot more. We're seeing a lot of them present things in video format on social media, but I really think YouTube is one of these platforms, especially in the age of AI, that is going to continue taking off. I mean, we watch YouTube like TV in our house. I don't know if you do as well, but I envision
my
myself
son does a lot more. He's 16, so it's coming, isn't it? I kind of do, bits and bobs and music stuff, but not enough. But okay. I totally know what you're saying.
Yeah, we have our respective interests and we engage in that with one another. It'll be after dinner, maybe we sit down and it's not like we're formally sitting down and it's time to watch YouTube. But if we're sitting in the same room, someone might turn on the TV and put on.
So what kind of things?
Well, it could be anything. Right now, I feel like the last year has just been us learning a million new skills. So it might even be just like lighting tips, camera tips, affiliate, how to build affiliate programs, all these things. So it's felt like a lot of.
So it's all there, isn't it? It's like you can learn everything there.
Yeah, and so for him, it might be like a House of the Dragon recap or something. He loves K-pop, something around that. And with me, it might be reality TV recaps or. It could be music videos that we both want to watch. But we just sit there. We watch it like it's MTV or like it's Nat Geo or like it's Home and Garden.
But you do that rather than you're not spending hours watching Netflix or HBO. Or
we also do that.
Come on, we got this September-October deadline, Adam.
But I still think we're logging a good 40 hours and 20 hours.
I'm sure you are.
Yeah.
Well, look, we'll talk a little bit more about what's going on with Blueprint a bit later. But the thing when we got to meet, I thought this would be such an intriguing part of the podcast because obviously there's no one better to talk about morning and evening rituals and grooming and all those good things. And it feels like we've come to come to the source here. So it would be great if, maybe this can be a precursor to some of the blueprint content, but I would love to know, and I'm sure it's just a snapshot of what's happening right now, all these boxes arriving, but what does your morning and evening routine look like at the moment, Adam?
Well, yeah, for us beauty and grooming editors, the unfortunate thing about our jobs, it's the blessing and the curse is we get access to everything, but it's
Yeah.
so hard to do something long enough that we can say this one thing changed my
Yeah,
life, because we always say you
that's
have to give it,
true.
yeah, you have to give it like 90 days or so, a couple months, just to really notice these impactful changes. And so my routine embraces certain ingredients and certain types of products, but I will say that it's probably never the same one day to the next. And so if I
Just because
can,
you've got so much stuff to check out, right?
oh yeah, I mean, even for this conversation, I'm looking at like, I was like, oh, I was just gonna do a small edit of products, and I don't plan on talking about them, but I wanted them here just for like quick recall. And I'm looking at them,
Yeah.
and it's like 60 products. It's not, and it's all like it's hair care, it's hair styling, it's fragrance, it's it's supplements and body comfort stuff. Like it's kind of covering the spectrum,
Hmm.
but this is a snapshot
I'll
of what
clear
it's
the
like
next
for
three
us.
hours, shall I? So
Yeah,
I've got nothing
exactly.
to do till lunchtime.
I want to flex a little bit, but
Do
so
it. Flex
do
away,
you
my
want to
friend.
just talk about it, like what my general routine might look like?
Yeah. So what would happen? What happened this morning? What did you use?
Well, this morning, well, okay, most mornings, my priorities with serums would be, well, got to do a face wash. I did pull this one. My absolute favorite is Cardin. It's a clay cleanser. They're based out of the U.S.
Yes, I
It's
don't know
a
that. I'm
Korean
glad
and
you've
Korean
got them there.
American
That's cool.
founder. What's that?
I'm glad you've actually got them to show. We don't
Oh
often do
yeah,
that. So,
yeah.
yeah.
For the people watching on
Ta-da!
social media. But Cardi, I really love texture when it comes to certain products. I love like a pillowy marshmallow texture, and that one is just. I mean, it can double as a purifying mask too, but it is so wonderful, and so I will use that almost anytime I can get that I have it. They constantly restocking me because they know I want to keep going through
Yeah.
it. But
So
so it
you buy
starts
that
with
in the
that.
States, Adam?
Yeah, I want to say you could probably ship it overseas, but it's mostly a U.S.
Yeah.
Brand at this point, I believe. Then I try to prioritize a hydrating serum and a vitamin C serum in the very least. When I talk about these things with people, I sort of say if you're concerned about budget, maybe nix the vitamin C serum, because I tend to only prioritize like the really high quality ones for that, just because the ingredient can be so volatile. So I do
Yeah.
believe the hydrating serum is something that's really accessible for everyone. Neutrogena has a great one. I'm looking at Horace's right here. They're available in the US, UK, France,
Yeah.
across Europe. They're hyaluronic acid and panthenol. That's what I'm using right
I like
now.
Horace. Yeah,
Fantastic.
it's good.
Me
Yeah.
too. And they have a lot of really great serums that combine multiple ingredients if you want to combine
Mm.
a couple steps into one.
Did you
Really
go to the
accessible
store
pricing
in
wise.
Covent Garden when you were here?
I was unable to. I was just like bing bang boom when I was
Yeah,
in
yeah.
London. I'm the same way in New York. However, I will see them in October in Paris. I'll meet with Mark when I'm there, the founder.
Cool.
Yeah. And what else? Then I always do a moisturizer and an SPF in the morning. And if you can combine them, great. A couple here that I really love are another one from Cardin. It wears really light. It's an SPF 30. And then another one that wears a little bit heavier, but that I find is just really, really nourishing, fantastic. And it also like gives my skin a really nice glow is from Ursa Major. It's their SPF 30. It's
Okay.
called Force Field. Or anything from Supergoop is really fantastic. It gets my
Great.
endorsement. So that's the morning routine. I mean, when you spell it out, it's really just cleanse, treat, hydrate, SPF, and
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
everything. Yeah, it's
Pretty
a
straightforward.
simple serum or a simple regimen. Yeah, and at night it would look relatively similar to that. The treatment step might be something a little more replenishing and rejuvenating, and I would also add my retinol into that. And I only do a prescription tretinoin for my retinol, which for those unacquainted with it it's like a vitamin A. Retinoids are vitamin A topicals. They are really good at resurfacing your skin cells. They basically act as an exfoliant. They're one of the few ingredients that can also like reduce acne and firm up your skin and reduce fine lines and existing signs of aging. So That's probably one of the best things you can do.
Yeah.
It can desensitize your skin, or it can sensitize your skin a little bit. So you need to really counter it with some SPF during the daytime. But honestly, if you're in that routine and you're doing a retinoid at night and an SPF in the daytime, you're probably going to not need to do a lot of the reactive corrective stuff in your 50s or 60s. You're going to be
Yeah.
so far ahead of everyone if you're
Yeah.
incorporating those two steps into your routine every day.
Yeah. And what about hair, Adam? What do you do with your hair?
Well, what
Or
we do
right
with our
now?
hair depends on the texture of that hair, the length of that hair, the density of that
Yeah.
hair. And so for me, I have had a hair transplant. I'm so proud of the mop that I that I have on my head right now.
When did you do that, Adam?
I did it in 2020. I flew to
Mm.
Istanbul. That was for a Men's Journal article at the time. I've covered it for a few of my other clients too. My partner did a hair transplant last year in Istanbul at the same clinic, Serkan Agan Clinic in Istanbul. We're both so pleased, and we have very different hair textures and hair
Yeah.
densities, and
And it
we
worked
have,
equally well.
yeah. I mean, and side by side, like we've benefited from it in similar but different ways. Just in how it's expressed and based on the loss patterns and the hair types that we both have. So for me, I have a very thick and very frizz prone and very straight hair. And so I need smoothing products. And so I build my style and my care regimen around that. So right now, like I'm looking at these products from Davines. They are it's from their Love Smoothing line. So like their conditioner is fantastic. It's super heavy. I need a really heavy hair to close off my cuticle, to trap that moisture, to just make sure that my hair stays as I set it in the morning. Otherwise, it is just disgusting by noon if I don't do something like that.
Well, it just gets frizzier and
Just, yeah, frizzy, and I also have really oily hair, so I think like this also sort of it just sort of like limits the variables, whether it's humidity, dryness, like other things that interact with my hair. And so they have a couple really great stylers that you can choose from that are all smoothers. I love this. It's called the Smoothing Perfector. I love this. It's called the Smoothing Perfector. And that's what I've been traveling with lately. And I don't know, it just makes it so I don't have to think about it the rest of the day. And to me, that's the most important thing.
And with your, and excuse if this is an ignorant question, but with your hair transplant, is the idea that lasts, has it got a certain shelf life, or should that last for a long time, what they did?
Well, yes and no, because the hair that they've taken from, that they've harvested, for lack of a better word, from the back of my head, and they take it from the back of your head, right? And then they put it up on top of your head.
And where was your sort of issue? Was it the top or receding or?
Okay, a couple things about hair transplants. If you're going to get one, you need to already be doing things that fight hair loss, because, and this ties into your earlier question. If you are experiencing hair loss, the solution is not a hair transplant, first and foremost. The solution is most likely some version of finasteride or dutasteride, whether that's oral or topical, and minoxidil, whether that's oral or topical. Those are going to be your absolute best remedies, first and foremost. The former, finasteride and dutasteride, they will mostly address recession, which was my core issue. And minoxidil is much better at addressing crown thinning, which I had experienced some of. My transplant really filled in my hairline and some deep recession. And I also have vitiligo, and I have a couple big white spots on my head, and those had thinned out too. So I filled in a couple bald spots with my hair transplant as well.
Right.
And so I gained a little fullness, but I mostly just gained this like shelf of hair in the front. So to answer your earlier question, the hair transplant, the hairs that they transplant are permanent, because they're not preconditioned to hair fall the way that the hairs that are native to the top of our head.
I see.
It's so strange
because of where they're from and on your head.
Yeah, because think of anyone who that's bald. They shave the sides and the back of their head to match the top. Because that's the donut, right? The George Costanza thing. Those don't fall with male pattern hair loss. So when those are put on top of your head, they stay there. So if you're already doing the
Right.
medicines to prevent hair loss in the first place, you're just going to keep doing those after the hair transplant. You need to, because otherwise you'll be totally Franciscan monk style, and the hairs will continue falling out that you
So
haven't.
you still take the medication, do you?
I still do. Yeah,
Right.
happily. Like
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
happily.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
and and I know a lot of guys who have trouble incorporating that into their routine, and they complain about having that step. And I just say, you got to shit or get off the pot, because
Mm.
if you want to keep your hair, which is not the most important thing in the world, I don't think if you don't care about it, let it go. Just free yourself of the money and the stress and all this.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
rock being bald. I
Just
envy you.
make a decision on it. Yeah.
Yeah, my dad, my brother, they're bald, they're beautiful. Like my brother embraced it at like age 19. I'm so jealous of him for that.
Mm.
But I'm this far along. I'm committed to it. Now I'm really committed to it, and I have to be.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it's like I brush my teeth, I put in my hair stuff at night, and I go to bed. Like it doesn't, to me, it doesn't feel like this extra step that requires a lot
Yeah.
of work.
Yeah. Yeah.
Especially given, like, I wash my hair, I style my hair, like I keep my hair. It's just
Yeah.
sort of this extra thing that
It's
is,
worth doing, isn't it?
yeah, yeah. And again, like, maybe people should try it and realize that they don't want to invest in the time and effort. It doesn't have to be expensive. There's inexpensive versions of a lot of these products. I guess I primarily speak for the US. You can get a lot of these through the Amazon pharmacy with your dermatologist giving you a prescription. Minoxidil is available over the counter topically. You can even get it at like Costco or the
Mm.
Kirkland brand has it, and I've used that. It's great. So don't let it be cost prohibitive, but if it feels like it's hard to put into your routine, if you're not seeing the results, or maybe you're too far progressed in your hair loss, I mean, you can really only bring back what you've lost in the last year or two, maybe.
Right.
Um, but get started now. And I would say, even if you haven't noticed signs of loss, you're maybe in your early 20s, it doesn't hurt to just put minoxidil in the mix.
Yeah. Bit
It's
of
not going to,
insurance.
yeah, you might prevent having to get a hair transplant in the first
Mm.
place.
I've noticed a lot. There's a lot more brands sort of active in that space in Europe and the UK too, and it doesn't feel quite as, I don't know. There's some of those old-fashioned brands, wasn't there, like Regain and stuff. Now it just feels like,
Oh
yeah,
yeah, Rogaine. Well, and a lot of
Rogaine.
them,
Sorry.
yeah, a lot of
Yeah.
them had patents, I believe, on a lot of these medicines, like Propecia with finasteride. And so as the generics have become available, that's why a lot of these brands are popping up,
Right.
and making it a little more accessible to
And there's certainly much less stigma than there was. I think,
absolutely, yeah.
which
Even
is as it
just
should be.
the pride with which I talk about my hair transplant, and
Yeah.
willing to just be a proponent for it. It's yeah, and I a lot of people will slide into my DMs and say, "Hey, I'm
Really.
thinking about this too," or do I have to shave my hair to do it, or can I do it discreetly? How quickly can I get back? And I get that it's not as out there for other people as it might be for the person who has to document the process and write about it
Mm.
and put, horrific photos of himself online showing just like scabs all across his scalp. But I do appreciate that it's becoming much less taboo to embrace it and to talk
Yeah.
about it. The probably the same way that a lot of like cosmetic procedures are
Yeah.
becoming that way.
That's
So
true.
yeah.
And what about fragrance, Adam? I know you're a big fan, and it's something else that you write about. Do you have a is that something else where there's a ton of products across your desk, or do you have a kind of edit of a sort of fragrance wardrobe?
I guess there's probably at any given time maybe 5 or 10 that I'm likely to grab,
Mm.
if on any given day that I want to wear something. Andre, unfortunately, is a little bit allergic or sensitive to
Oh,
them.
is he?
So yeah, so I'm not. I used to put them in my diffuser and just blast them through the apartment all day and just revel in whatever smell that I wanted to that day. So now I have to dial it in. And honestly, when I go on a walk, I'll just put on a fragrance and just bask in it. If I'm going to run out groceries, go to the gym, anything, that's when I'm
Yeah.
putting it on. So fragrance for me, though, it's one of the most fun things to write about, just in terms of storytelling, in terms of the brands, in terms of what I'm able to. It can be hard to say something about a moisturizer or a serum. You,
Yeah.
you could talk about the benefits, and guys really love solution focused things, but there's just nothing quite as colorful and exciting as fragrance. So that's where a lot of my love comes from it. Not even necessarily from wearing it, but just from talking about it. So
Mm.
Yeah, but
It's a real sort of joy giver, isn't it? It's one of those. I think it's hard, it tends to illuminate people and animate them and make them excited. And yeah, I
yeah,
feel the same
and
about
nothing. I
it.
mean, no one's ever stopping me and saying, "What moisturizer are you wearing?" Yeah. What hair supplements do you? Well, they actually
apart
have.
from
They have asked me that before, but
apart from me on a podcast,
yeah,
what do you
yeah,
tell me about your
yeah,
routine?
yeah, exactly. Quite, yeah, very, very much so. But I do love the that question. I love answering that question. I love. Even then, it's just like a great talking point to tell
It's a
that
nice
person who
it's
asked
always
me.
a nice interaction, that isn't it? God, you smell good. What are you
Yeah,
wearing?
and I don't mind if it's like if I'm wearing like some familiar thing from Hermes or Dior or
Yeah,
something. I mean, those are great, but I
yeah,
love telling them that it's like this brand that they've never heard of and they
yeah.
should check it out. And because I'm also thinking of like that brand owner who I very likely have spoken with and met
Totally.
and what it
Yeah,
means to that person and what they've put into that
yeah,
brand. And
yeah.
so
Turning
yeah,
people on to some of the more interesting niche kind of the brands that are just coming up. Totally.
yes.
Yeah. What are the ones you're liking right now?
Okay, I did do a 5 SKU edit for this
Yeah,
for us here.
five
So
skew.
yeah. Okay. Well, it's almost September, which is the time that the Lalabo City exclusives become available far
Yes.
and wide. Now, I will say the absolute best city exclusive. They are sending me all of them. I think I might be writing about them soon, but um, the absolute best one is Berlin's. And I was so happy to live there and to have access to it all year round. For those who don't know, like I think there's 16 cities. They just launched
Yeah.
Mexico City. And you can only get these fragrances in the city where they are launched. It's a genius ploy
It's
by,
clever, isn't it?
yeah, it's so
Just
smart. And
create
then,
this demand once a year.
yes, and then every September they make them more available online and in each store. So maybe you love the Berlin ones, you just have to wait to September to buy it in Paris or in
Mm.
Seoul or New York or wherever. But you can always get it in Berlin. That's kind of how it works. So the Berlin one is called Cedrat 37. I I get
Yeah, I think I've
so
smelled that.
many compliments on this
Do you?
one. I have converted so many, or people saying, "Well, next time you have someone from Berlin come, can you have them bring one of these for me?" It is so beautiful. It's
What do
like,
you like about it? What's the key things in there, Alan?
well, it's like cedrat and ginger. It's and a little musky on the end too, but it is just so. I love a zenful fragrance. I mean, speaking of Le Labo, another one I really love. We just put it in GQ as the best overall was Te Matcha, I think 26. I always forget
Yeah, that's great.
the number. I
Yeah.
just love something that feels really sophisticated, like a college professor or an architect could wear it. That's to me
That's
because
the vibe you're going for.
yeah, I'm
Yeah.
neither of those things, but it makes me it calms me. It
Yeah.
it makes me feel warmed. It makes me feel smarter than I am, and I
Yeah.
don't know,
But that's
it
what it can do, isn't it? Isn't it amazing? So yeah,
yeah, and it
creates this different persona, or allows you to sort of lean into a different persona almost. Yeah.
absolutely. And
Mm.
I also think that it's the most universal wear year round in any situation.
Right.
It's approachable at work. It's friendly at work. It might get you that promotion by making you seem smarter than you are. But it's really also kind of sexy and like very confident. And you could wear it at work. You could wear it in winter or summer. So a lot of those types of scents are the ones that I gravitate towards. And actually, the ones that I'm talking about today are probably like I think they all fit that bill. So that would be the pattern between them.
Hmm.
Maybe that's a nice segue into this one that I really want more people to know about this brand. Our friend Carlos Huber.
Yes.
He's the
Love him.
perfume designer behind some. I mean, he has his own fantastic brand, super
Artiste.
celebrated Arquiste.
Yeah.
But he's also a fragrance designer for other brands, for Matthew Zink, for Vacation, and
Vacation.
for Bianco Profumo. These
See, I
are
don't know that brand.
it's a father son brand out of Chicago. They're just the most Italian guys you've ever met. And what I love about them is like they post videos on their social, and you're just like, y'all are just the most like you're just so Italian, and I would
Is it
never
like
would
The
have thought.
Bear? Because I'm loving the latest season of the. Do you watch The Bear?
I
Do you know that? I mean,
I've
not
seen a
not
couple
obviously not.
episodes.
That's
I don't
Chicago,
know.
isn't it?
Yeah, I'm
No.
probably too busy watching YouTube, but they you
Anyway.
would not perceive these two guys as fragrance guys, but they have such good taste. They were so smart to tap into Givaudan. It's Christine Hassan. Givaudan is the perfumer, and then Carlos is
Right.
the perfume designer behind all that. So The branding is fantastic. I believe the son, I want to say his name is Nick. He's a graphic designer, and so he's just created this fantastic brand. But they have 3. They're launching their 4th one. All of them are fantastic, but that one, Neroli Pomodoro, it's like juicy, and there's tomato leaf and basil.
That sounds like a great combination. That's a good name too.
So special.
Yeah.
And like Nordstrom, Sephora, I don't know who, anyone listening, like, blow this up. It is so good.
So where is it available now? Just through sort of niche stores and online?
I think just on there's definitely stores in Chicago. I see on their
Yeah.
socials that they're getting picked up at places around there, but they deserve like the top shelf. They're so good, but they're also really accessible too. I want to say that's like $125 or $150 or something.
Yeah, so that's good.
Yeah,
well, props to them.
Yeah, I don't know if you want me to get. I have some others here, but for the sake of time, we can.
Well, maybe I can add them in the program notes. Some we'll do like a kind of a bonus edit, and we'll include some of the other things. But I suppose, having you here, Adam, and such an expert, for people who are starting this journey of getting more interested in grooming, I mean, have you got some tips on a sort of edit that would be a great place to start, or that certain kind of products that one ought to include, or that would be good to use?
Yeah, well, I just want to iterate that it doesn't have to be an expensive thing to start.
Yeah, for sure.
We talk about all sorts of products when we do this, but if I was left to my own devices, I would probably be using your CeraVes, your Doves, your like these brands. Like Prequel is a new one that's so cost accessible.
There's even, I mean, in UK and Europe, brands like Bulldog.
Absolutely. American Crew. Products. All these things can be. They don't have to be expensive. And there's lots of, like, Cardin is not expensive. Horace is not expensive. Some of these favorite brands of mine are extremely accessible. And so,
Heath, do you know Heath?
I actually don't know Heath. Yeah. I will look them up after this. Are they a UK brand?
UK brand, yeah.
Okay.
Really good skincare.
Okay.
But again, in Boots and places like that, so very accessible.
Yeah, we might have them here then too. So I will say, don't let the cost feel intimidating to you. Just get started. Focus on, like, you could even use a Dove bar soap as your body wash and your face wash. You can combine a lot of these steps too. I really do think everyone should be using a retinoid. And so if you get, whether that's a prescription tretinoin or just a topical over the counter, and like an adapalene gel, I always say that word wrong. That's from like Differin. They're great for acne. It's a retinoid that's really great for acne, and it's like $15. And so you can incorporate that into your routine. You can use the same moisturizer day and night. You can use the same cleanser day and night from that retinoid. You can get your exfoliating aspect. Just make sure there's some sort of SPF in the daytime, 30 or above. Yeah. I mean, that's it. That regimen, to me, I think gets you 90% of the way there. And anything you want to add to it, maybe for acne, for aging, for texture, for hydration, that can be a serum, but that can also be from Neutrogena or Horace or one of these really accessible companies.
And it's not something that's going to take a huge amount of time out of life, is it? People can fit this in,
Yep. And even the hair loss stuff that we were talking about before, your minoxidil can cost you $5 a month if you want it to, if you just go through something like, and I don't mean to endorse like the Amazon pharmacy necessarily, but it doesn't have to be cost prohibitive to you. And so that's what I would say is get started. Don't worry about the branding or anything. Just focus on building the routine, making it something that you can sustain, whether it's just from a regimen or a financial level.
And that's key, isn't it? As you mentioned at the beginning, keep it consistent, keep it going.
That's the whole point, and I don't think anyone needs to be told to like wash their body every day. Like, we're all showering, I hope.
We're grown-ups here.
Yeah, but it's the other stuff. It's like when you go to sleep, are you sleeping in a really humid space? Like, that can be great for your skin maybe, but it maybe isn't as good for your hair. So maybe the next day, like the conditioner you use should really focus on reducing that humidity and that frizzing. If you sleep in a really dry room, maybe you have an air conditioned apartment, or it's winter, or you're just in a dry climate. you should either a humidifier is one of the best things you can invest in terms of grooming. I'm constantly trying to find ways to insert humidifiers into my articles, but from that standpoint, like, you should have a moisturizer on when you go to sleep, just to protect your skin from that drying element, and you will wake up looking so much better. You don't need like an eye cream or an eye patch in the morning to depuff if you are putting the steps in place the night before to make sure that your skin is just like not gonna get to that state. These sorts of things, like, that all sort of stem from having just the most simple things in place and building a regimen. It's so, like, if you're worried about dark spots or fine lines, imagine if you just used SPF every single day with your moisturizer. You won't even feel that it's there. That 10 minutes you spend outside commuting to work every single day for a year, multiplied by 30 years or 40 years, that will make a huge difference in terms of how you look when you are 60 or 70 years old.
Insurance policies, isn't it?
It really is. So,
yeah. And I think also, people could do a great place to start. There's a ton of resources online, and particularly, you go and find some of Adam's articles and some of the products he's recommended. He's a great source of information and knowledge, and that's so useful.
Too much information to be honest. Looking at the 70 products in front of me right now, like, can we talk about more of them?
No, it is really useful. And again, I'm going to link to some of these resources and some of the products that Adam has mentioned today on the pod. And Adam, I always like to find out about the name of the podcast being Man in the Mirror. What the guest thinks about as you're getting ready in the morning or the evening, and the guy that looks back at you. How do you feel about him now? I think you've touched on some of these areas, and feeling in a really good space. Is that a reflection of what looks back now? Are you happy?
I think so. And I see this person who's changed his appearance primarily through a hair transplant, and probably in an effort to look younger, and maybe in the awareness that I'm going on camera more soon. And so I do think I'm someone who maybe I acknowledge some of these insecurities I have around aging and whatnot. But that said, as I'm nearing, I just turned 38, and what's that Kamala Harris quote? Like, we exist in the context of like all that came before us. I feel that. I feel all those years. I feel all the experiences I've had in living in different countries and taking 100 different jobs. And I see that on my face, which, with retinoids and sunscreen is smoother than it otherwise would be. But I feel this sense of calm, I think, when I see myself. And it has a lot to do just with having a world-class, like, incredible partner, being in this place that feels like we've earned this peace of mind together here in Portugal. We're starting this business. There's not an ounce of me that feels like this business is not going to be a success. And I just think I don't think I look in the mirror as much anymore. I think I'm just like, oh yeah, there I am. Like, and I go, I don't have as much to think about anymore.
That's an interesting in itself, isn't it? If you maybe feel a sense of calm and you're sort of less worried about it. I mean, doing the job that you do, I guess it's self-evident really, but do you feel that weight to that rests on your shoulders to look a certain way? I mean, do you think people are judging those sort of things?
Yeah, I do. I'm very pro, if you don't like something, change it. I mean, that's kind of my whole mantra probably. You can always leave a bad situation. And I realize there's nuance to that. Not everyone can get out of what they want. But I think if you don't like your hairline, guess what? You can change it. You might have to save some pennies, but if you want to save less pennies, you can fly to Turkey and also get a cultural experience out of it. So I do feel a little bit of that pressure, especially if I'm going to be talking about things, I do have to, walk the walk a little bit. But I also want to embrace all different versions of this. And I'm also really contradictory in a lot of things. If I say don't do something, it's more like do as I say, not as I do. Like I love like covering parts of my body in antiperspirant because I'm just a very sweaty person, but like I'm not really sure everybody should be doing that. It's just like a decision that I choose to make. So it's sort of these little things that are very much like, I can tell you the right thing technically, but maybe I'm not always doing it
Yeah, it
myself.
doesn't mean
But
that, we live a virtuous life and we do it all perfectly.
yeah, exactly. I mean, I can tell you, like, you shouldn't drink. You should never
Mm,
do, these sorts of things that age you faster. You shouldn't lay out in the sun on a sunny day. But
mm.
like, we all do that. Like
Yeah,
life is
Portugal, for
short.
goodness sake.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like life is short for the living. Like, or it's meant for
yeah,
living. So yeah, so like just understand the rules, and then like that's how you can break them.
yeah,
Like that's the
yeah. If you're
framework you can use.
if you're cognizant of them, then you kind of make of it what you will.
Absolutely, yeah,
Yeah,
and that's sort of couched, I think, in a lot of like that will be really a tenant like running through Blueprint, I believe.
yeah. Because I mean, the worst thing, people hate to feel lectured, or that, everything's sort of too, people wagging fingers. That's not, I mean, and that's going to be a million miles away from what you're doing. But yeah, there is some of that stuff online, isn't there? When people get into that kind of more holistic thing,
Yeah,
and
I
it
think
just
so.
it can
Yeah.
it can feel a bit that you're being condescended, or that someone's trying to paint a picture of a certain sort of life that
There's always
feels
holes.
removed.
Yeah, there's holes in
Yeah,
every one of these things, and
yeah,
I think that's part of my job too. Is I think recognizing when people are when a brand is bullshit, when it's
yeah,
not built on the principles that it says that it's touting, when it's just chasing certain buzzwords,
yeah,
etc. So
yeah, and it's all
yeah,
marketing rather than what's in the actual product.
yep, yep.
Finally, Adam, maybe outside of the work, and it sounds like there's so much, there's so much going on, and you're trying to launch Blueprint. But what are the things that make you happy outside of work?
Maybe tying it all back together. I live and love, like I love my partner, and
Mm, that really
I
comes across.
yeah, I, I've not always loved myself. I've been in some
Mm,
really dark places, and I just feel like he has the patience, and he has the presence, and he has the tolerance of a lot of the things that come with me, and
yeah,
he really just like unlocks something, and I'm so grateful, and like to launch something like this with him, but also to feel like it's like it's for us. We don't plan to have kid, like it's for us. It's for
yeah,
the dog that we'll adopt and the cat that we'll adopt, and two
yeah,
people living. He moved his life to be with me, and we were from two different continents, and we live in a third one, and like I just cannot sell short like how important this person has been in just giving me purpose and that I've never felt
yeah,
before. And I know that a lot of things can change in life, and I'm so aware of that. And I just hope every day that like I can do the right thing that keeps us on this path together. So like truly, if everything else fell away, like as long as like he's there, like I'm good. So
yeah.
that's what makes me happy.
Oh, that's wonderful. And you're clearly both so, you're making a massive life, work, investment, everything, aren't you? Kind of thrown everything in together, and it's beautiful. So you're somewhere new, and you're going to be working together.
Yeah, and he quit
Do
his
you, do you,
job. Like we he doesn't have
yeah.
his salary right now, and I have half of my salary just so that we can make this work. So none of that is lost on me, and
So you're all in. You're kind of both all in.
yeah, 100%. And
Yeah.
he's like also he's a little more camera shy. He's so cute, so like he shouldn't be, but he's kind of becoming. I can see like where he is in his grooming understanding, where I was after a few years, because I started from zero too, and I really think
Yeah.
like he could launch our Brazilian version of Blueprint if
Yeah.
he wanted
Do you
to.
think he'll get more? Can you imagine a time where he'll want to do things on screen and be more visible?
Maybe. I mean, that's totally up to him.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I would love if we also like spoke to different audiences in different places. The problem
Mm,
becomes the brands that we have access to, and try to make things as universal as possible. But
mm.
I don't know. Part of me is like, am I just gonna be a YouTuber now? Will he be like the way the YouTubers like bring in their partner randomly? Like I don't. It's not my intent, but he's very much a character in the stuff I talk about because he has different skin type than me. He has different hair type than me.
Yeah.
He experiences all these products in different ways
And
than I
that's going to
do.
be useful, isn't it? To
It's
sort of
so
A/B some
helpful.
things, and yeah,
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 like a half. I mean, I think between the two of us, I think we cover like 70 or 80% of the bases, and we all have
mm.
blind spots, but he illuminates a lot of mine, and a lot of what I get to write about is from his perspective. So I really appreciate that as well.
And I can be here if you need anyone for over
Yes,
50. So
wonderful.
Adam, thank you so much. It's been amazing to find out a bit more about you and obviously to hear about the beginnings of the blueprint, and so excited about that. And say I'll mention where people can sign up, and we look forward to seeing it all come to life in
Thanks, Hayden. I
September,
want to
October.
remind everybody, like, don't hold your breath for the first couple months. Like, once that Instagram and
Yeah,
once that YouTube start populating, that's when we're gonna be off to the races, and hopefully it
it'll
feels
be
like more
developing.
lived in. Yeah.
Well, maybe what we could, I'm throwing this out there, what we potentially do is come back and do another one like early next year and talk about how it's all going
More than
and get
happy
back on it.
to. if,
Amazing.
if you get good feedback on this one, I'll be back. And I think podcast is like phase 2 of me doing all that. So
Great.
let's do a collab.
Fantastic. Look, thank you for your time. Have a brilliant day. So lovely to see you again, and hope to see you in London again soon.
Yeah, and you here, Hayden. I adore your show. I am so like in
Oh,
awe
thank you.
of you just creating this space for men's grooming and for the personalities of people in it. So thank you for having me.
My pleasure. Lovely to see you. Take care.
Bye.
Bye bye.